And call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone, and on time. It is 1:30. This is fantastic. Hopefully we can keep this up all year long. Colette has the tardy slips for anybody that shows up late. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started with bill introductions, as that is the first order of business on any of our committee meetings. So do I have any requests for bill introductions today? Go right ahead. Please announce yourself and give us the RS number and a bit about your bill.
We're on?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Heather Sprague. I am requesting a bill introduction on behalf of Justice Action Network. Do you want RS number first?
Yes, please.
Okay. It is RS 0091, and it is regarding eliminating juvenile fines and fees.
Very good.
Thank
you
you
very much. There's no objection. We'll have that introduced. Ed Klump, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed Klump. I'm here representing the Kansas Sheriff's Association, Kansas Association of Chiefs of Police, Kansas Peace Officers Association. We have a bill request. It's RS number 0320, 23 RS 0320. This one will be familiar to you. It is the Reduce Armed Violence Act. It was House Bill, I believe, 2657. Came through here last year, for those of you who were here last year. And it is the same bill, including the amendments that this committee made to the bill last year.
Very good. All right. Any objections? Seeing none, we'll get that request sent in. Is there anybody else from the gallery that has any today? All right. Seeing none, I have 3 bills to introduce today. The first is 23 RS 0127. This is identical to House Bill 2200 from last year as amended. This expands the use of the juvenile justice oversight funds to our youth that are not quite yet in the judicial system yet, but have the propensity to be. So I would like to introduce that bill. Are there any objections to that? Seeing none, we'll consider that introduced. 23 RS 139 is another bill that this changes what was SB 179. This is the Juvenile Crisis Intervention Centers. We've heard from our partners in Johnson County that the terminology used there is very restrictive, that they can only be used for mental health needs, and this would change the use of those crisis intervention centers for behavioral health issues. So we'll have a conversation around that as well. Any objections? Seeing none, that one will be requested as well. And finally, 23 RS 0238. This is a bill that moves the Kansas Highway Patrol under the Kansas Attorney General. Similar to how the KBI is placed under the Attorney General's office, I'm introducing a bill to move the Kansas Highway Patrol underneath there as well. Any objections to that bill being requested? Seeing none, that'll be introduced. All right, any other bill introductions? Yep. Representative Smith has one. All right.
I've asked Ms. Scott to give me the RS number, and I'll go ahead and explain it before then. Actually, this is a bill we heard last year also. It has to do with SNAP benefits for convicted drug felons and restoring their benefits. It'd be 0317, 0317.
Very good. Any objections to that being introduced? Seeing none, that one will be introduced. All right. Anything else? All right, well, we'll move past bill introductions. For those of you new to the committee, there'll be a lot of learning lessons, but bill introductions and requests for those bill introductions is the very first matter of business on any committee. So we'll be doing that for the foreseeable future. Now I'd like to take a little bit of a moment and maybe do some informal introductions. As you can see, there are a lot of new faces, couple of old faces, but we only have 5 returning members of the committee, 7 brand new freshmen, and 1 new chairman that is joining us this year. So excited to hear that. And so what I'd like to do, we'll start with Representative Titus. Maybe just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and maybe a little bit about yourself, whatever you'd like to share. And I would also like to know your favorite hobby. So everybody be thinking of that as we make our way around. Representative Titus, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kenny Titus. I represent District 51, which includes Wabunsee County, Wamego, and Manhattan along Highway 24. Prior to being legislature, I worked for the Kansas Department of Agriculture, the Attorney General's Office, and the Kansas Department of Transportation. So I have a good feel for that side of attorneying, not so much for the corrections and criminal enforcement side. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from everyone in here. I spend most of my time, I have a 3.5-year-old and a 4.5-year-old at home, so I have very few hobbies, but occasionally I do like to get over to a K-State game when I have some free time, so.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Representative Titus, and welcome. Representative Thompson.
I'm Mike Thompson, and I represent District 33 out of Wyandotte County. And Wyandotte 33 covers from Turner, the lower part of Kansas City, Kansas, Muncie, Edwardsville, and then into Bonner Springs. So there's quite a bit of area there, and to include the racetrack area. I was prior military. I retired military. I was with the Navy and then later with the Army. I've been police officer, different jobs, contract welder, things like that. So my mother wanted to know when I was going to make up my mind when I, but it all has helped me. You know, I work out of that and relate out of that. My hobby is, and I don't know whether this would be my hobby or my therapy, and that is I like to work on old cars.
Very nice. Sometimes our hobby is our therapy, so fantastic. Thank you for that. Representative Slingensiepen, and I will mess that up probably
Excellent. Well
a dozen
done.
times.
Thank you,
but
Mr. Chairman. My name's Tobias Slingensiepen. I serve House District 55 here in Central Topeka. I have been the pastor of First Congregational Church, a church in which I grew up for the last 23 years. I've also served during that time as a law enforcement chaplain, also under former Topeka Police Chief Ed Klump, who was the second chief under whom I served. And I'm still a member of the Chaplaincy Corps, though inactive during session. And I used to, before that, teach institutional ethics and run a research department at the University of Bonn in Germany. I'm bilingual, and my hobby, I guess you could say, is I'm a tree enthusiast. I like hiking and checking out and identifying trees.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, and welcome to the committee. Representative Adam Smith, go right ahead.
Yeah, the Representative Smith might get confusing. He's the important one. My name is Representative Adam Smith, and I probably get the award for the farthest traveled. I live a mile from the Colorado border. I represent the 120th District out in northwest Kansas. My wife and I own and operate, we're the third generation to own and operate our family ranch out there. So when I'm not here, I'm chasing cows and riding horses. So my hobby, I attempt to play golf when nobody's watching.
There you go. Well, thank you, Representative, and welcome to the committee. Representative Vaughn. Got to push the button.
My name is Carl Maughan. I'm represented from District 90, which is west and north of Wichita, sort of West Sedgwick County, Colwich, Valley Center, Mays, and a little tiny bit of Wichita. Hobbies, right? So I'm an attorney by trade. Spend most of my life, professional life, working for myself and in a family practice, well, family-owned practice, doing a lot of criminal defense work. Over the last sort of 8 years or so, I've moved into more business work. I'm currently in-house counsel for a company in Wichita. As far as hobbies go, other than family time, I don't really have many hobbies. Until this year, I had been coaching youth rugby, middle school aged rugby, and every now and then I still get out and play an all-boys game myself. But the session is interrupting my youth rugby, so I won't be doing that from now on. So.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the committee. Representative Heiberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Boog Heiberger. I represent the 46th District, which is the northeast corner of Lawrence. I've been the ranking member here for the last 8 years. And for my hobby, I'm an attorney, and for my hobby, I have a solo private practice.
There You know, all right, Stephen Owens, representing 74th House District. That's rural Harvey County, Marion, and McPherson County, so about 30, 45 miles north of Wichita. Let's see, I have 2 daughters, a son, 1 granddaughter, and another granddaughter that is literally, let's see, 4 days past due. So I'm looking forward to that, being a grandpa for the second time. Serial entrepreneur, own and operate a number of different businesses in different industries. And for a hobby, I have actually taken up flying lessons. So I'm trying to get my private pilot's license. Let's just say the FAA is a fun organization to try to work with. So yeah, that's kind of put a hamper on things, but we're making progress and it's a lot of fun. So thank you. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Eric Smith. I'm from the 76th District. That is an hour south of us. It's all of Coffee County, most of Osage, and most of Lyon County. I've been on this committee since 2017. I enjoy, gosh, what do I enjoy? Working, I guess, because I don't have time for my hobby of hunting and fishing. But I've also taken up going back to school, so I'm about to finish up my degree on criminal justice and pre-law. So in my young age, I still haven't figured out what I want to do when I grow up, so that's what I do. I really enjoy this committee. I think we do a lot of good work. It seems like we see some of the same things over and over, but I still feel like we're getting the education out there, we're getting the conversations going, and we're finding some common ground, and that isn't true of all committees. So this is an enjoyable experience if you let it be. Thank you.
Thank you, and always learning, right? Never too old to learn. Representative Butler.
I'm Nate Butler. I'm from the 68th District, which is all of Morris County, the southern portion of Gary County, Junction City area, and a small southern portion of Riley County. And so excited to have, this was not even on my scope. And when they said I was on this committee, I'm like, okay, what does that committee do? So it's kind of exciting. It's something to learn. It's to learn new. You know, I always learning is a big part of my life. And so I'm a retired military, United States Army. Did 22 years in the military. Yeah, loved it all. Lived right outside the gates of Fort Riley now, and so a big supporter of the Big Red One. In my civilian life, I've pastored now. I call it church consultant. It's really a missions director with the Southern Baptist Convention in 14 north central counties of central Kansas. And then on my spare time, I'd sell real estate. So, and my hobbies used to be hunting till I had a hip replacement, and then now it's killing because I stand out there and just shoot them as they come out of the European hunts. And then, but I'm fishing. I've kind of converted over to fishing now, so it's kind of exciting.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Welcome to the committee. Representative Martinez.
I'm Angela Martinez. I represent District 103 in Wichita, Kansas. It runs across central Wichita, I'm sorry. I am a direct care counselor at Wichita Children's Home. My husband and I also have a youth organization working with at-risk youth and utilizing athletics as a tool to help them along and keep them engaged in positive activities. I'm a community organizer. I organize events and activities for my community as well as the city of Wichita. I'm also a part-time employee with the city of Wichita Park Board Recreation. So those are all my hobbies. I have 4 dogs, so I like spending time with them when I can too. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, welcome to the committee. Representative Resman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm John Resman. I represent the 121st District, which is the west side of Olathe, in a small section of DeSoto and Gardner. I'm retired from the Johnson County Sheriff's Office after 30 years. And my hobbies are Legos, and they're a little difficult when you don't follow the instructions or the pictures, so that can be quite challenging.
There you go. Well, thank you. Thank you, Representative. Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Carmichael. I'm the state representative from the 92nd District in Wichita. I generally represent the area northwest of downtown Wichita. I've been lucky to serve on this committee since 2017. I practice law for a living, but not nearly as hard as my friend Carl does, and he can attest to that. We used to be on the same floor, and I don't think you've seen me on the floor since COVID, and I think you've moved. I mean, Yeah, I mean, that tells you how hard I work at the law these days. By the way, we're going to really be glad to have Carl on this committee. We need somebody with his experience in criminal law, and I really am glad he's stepping up. Hobbies. I used to tell people my hobby was flying airplanes, but then I came to the Kansas legislature. And I don't fly airplanes anymore, and there's a cause and effect relationship. So I instead, I watch politics like some people watch sports, except when Pat Mahomes is on, and I just love the Chiefs. See you guys.
Go Chiefs. Thank you, Representative. Representative Turk.
Well, going last is always my optimal spot, but it gives you just enough time to figure out what you're going to say and then absolutely forget it and start over. I represent District 117, the new District 117 in western Johnson County, so I get the rest of DeSoto, and it stretches, we kind of look like the Big Dipper, stretches into rural Douglas County, where conveniently enough I grew up. My background is I went to school for criminal justice administration and law enforcement. I've spent almost 2 decades in the Kansas Air National Guard as a security forces officer, so law enforcement there as well. The application of the law is familiar to me. I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I just keep acquiring businesses, which allows me to be here today. My hobbies, I've got 2, well, 1.5, I guess. I too enjoy working on classic cars, and we share a Corvette likeness there, and then I too attempt to play golf on occasion. But again, this tends to get in the way of that, doesn't it?
Excellent. Well, thank you very much and welcome to the committee. Although you're not quite last, because we're going to start with Natalie here. And Natalie, on top of everything else, including your hobby, let us know what you do for us here in the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Natalie Scott. I work for the Office of Revisor of Statutes. I'm starting my 10th session as an attorney there, my 9th session, I think, on this committee. And our office is responsible for drafting the legislation that you guys discuss in this committee. And so if you guys have any bill ideas that you want to pursue, or if you have amendments to bills, you would bring those to us and we can help them out. Help you out with those. We also give some explanations of what the bills do at the beginning of bill hearings, so you'll be hearing from me a lot more than you'd probably like as the session goes on. And so if you have any questions about that, let me know. My hobby this time of year is drafting lots and lots of bills. But when we're not in legislative session, I am a big crafter, so I do a lot of knitting and sewing. And I also am a craft beer enthusiast. So.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you, Natalie. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, committee. Jason Thompson. I'm also in the revisor's office. This is session number 17. Most all of them on judiciary or related committees. I'll be backing up Natalie, so you won't see me in the room very much unless there's a reason for me to be here, mostly because I'm usually listening to the Senate about this time of day or preparing floor amendments for them or committee reports. So that's my primary staffing role, is Senate judiciary. Hobbies, similar to Natalie's actually. We have craft beer discussions down in our office, but other than that, spending time with my family, reading when I have a chance, non-legal things preferably, watching the Chiefs as well, so yeah.
Awesome, thank you, Jason. And go right ahead from IT. I already forgot your name, I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Tay. I'm with the Broadcasting Services team. This is my first year at session, so I'm just happy to be here. As far as a hobby is concerned, I am a, I guess, part-time stylist, a cosmetologist, so I do hair for fun. So that is what I like to do, and I'm just glad to run the show.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Shantae. Jillian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jillian Block. I'm with the Legislative Research Department. Our job is to help you out with any research requests that you might have, and we'll also be writing your supplemental notes when bills pass out of this committee, so keep an eye out for those things from us. My newest hobby is raising my 3.5-month-old. And when she's not taking up my time, I do really like to knit. And this is my first session.
Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Meredith Fry. This is my third session and third time in this committee. And I'm with, legislative research. So anything that Jillian said we can do. Hobbies, I have a menagerie of animals, and I like riding horses.
Well, define a menagerie for me.
2 horses, a pony, a mini donkey, 9 chickens, 3 cats, and 2 dogs.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. So on Thursdays, we do show and tell. And I'm just kidding. Go right ahead, Colette.
All right, there. So I'm Colette Niehaus, and this is my second year as the assistant here for the committee. And so I'm happy to be back. And for hobbies, I'd say I enjoy doing some travel and then also just being outside and hiking and walking some.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, and thank you for coming back and for all of our staff members. Really appreciate the work you guys do. I know we will rely on you tremendously as we move forward, but I'm excited to get to work and excited for the work that we'll do on this committee. So now that we've had a chance to all get to know each other just a little bit more, we'll move into some of the more formal things. We'd like to have ask Natalie to read the committee rules and take any questions on the committee rules. And by the way, before she gets started, all of these things were sent out in email about 2 hours before the meeting started. We are a paperless committee, and so if you would like any of that printed, you should all have printers in your office. You can print that. And we like to try to save the trees around here, and all of this information will also be posted on our committee page. So testimony will be uploaded, things like that will be there, as well as in your email box before we start committee. So go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the House rules here would be number 1, in any case where committee rules do not apply, House rules shall govern. And in any case where House rules do not apply, Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure, the 2020 edition, shall govern. All powers, duties, and responsibilities not addressed herein are reserved to the chair. Number 2, cellular phones and other electronic devices with audible tones are prohibited in the committee room unless audible tones or ringers are disabled. Number 3, the chair shall determine the committee agenda, including scheduling and order of business. Number 4, the chair reserves the right to limit testimony that is cumulative in nature and may limit testimony when necessary to a specific number of minutes. Number 5, committee members shall not address conferees unless and until permission is granted by the chair. Number 6, the chair reserves the right to limit questioning of conferees by committee members in the interest of time and in the interest of fairness to conferees and other committee members. Number 7, no conferee shall be interrupted during the presentation of their testimony except with the permission of the chair. Number 8, questioning of a conferee shall be limited to the subject matter on the agenda for the day, except as may otherwise be allowed by the chair. Number 9, committee members shall not be approached during committee hearing or deliberations by anyone other than fellow legislative members or legislative staff. Number 10, no bill or resolution shall be taken up for a committee vote unless announced by the chair. Number 11, a motion requires a second to be in order. Number 12, a substitute motion is in order, but no additional substitute motions shall be in order until the prior substitute motion is disposed of. Number 13, amendments to motions are not in order except upon the consent of the member making the motion and his or her second. Number 14, a motion to table or take from the table shall be in order only when such item is on the agenda or is taken up by the chair. The motion requires a simple majority of those present and is, unless otherwise determined by the chair, non-debatable. Number 15, the use of cameras, photographic lights, and recording devices are subject to reasonable rules and limitations determined by the chairperson that are designed to ensure the orderly conduct of the proceedings at any meeting. Number 16, a request from any member that their vote be recorded shall be granted. Number 17, granting excused absences is reserved to the chair. Number 18, the chair reserves the right to take such action as may be necessary to prevent disruptive behavior in the committee room or via WebEx during hearings and deliberations. Number 19, the chair may allow for testimony to be taken by live video conference through WebEx. If the chair allows for live video testimony, the privilege shall be extended to any conferee appearing before the committee. Number 20, the chair may allow committee members to appear via live video conference or hold a committee meeting via live video conference. Number 21, members participating in a meeting via WebEx must do so without any other member, registered lobbyist, or executive branch employee in their presence or in contemporaneous communication with that member. Number 22, no member shall vote on any question before the committee unless such member is in the State House when casting his or her vote and must comply with Rule 21. And finally, number 23, adjournment is reserved to the chair.
Very good. Thank you very much, Natalie. Are there any questions as it relates? Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two separate matters of inquiry with your leave. Sure. First, as it relates to the use of Masons in the absence of a committee rule on point, or I think a House rule on point. My recollection is that Masons further provides that when not addressed by Mason's manual, then it then reverts to Robert's rules, or is that not correct? And the reason that I ask is sometimes in committee, we've had people who made reference to Roberts and sometimes to Masons, and I think it's when Masons doesn't provide the answer, then perhaps we revert to Roberts, but I don't know for sure, and I just hope maybe we could take a look at that. And I know these rules are not unique to this committee. These are the same drafts I've seen elsewhere, but it might be helpful to address that now rather than in the fray of debate.
I will make one comment, and I would have to look at.
I just can't remember for sure.
Yeah, I would have to look at Masons for sure. I don't think that it reverts to Roberts, but I will double check that. I think perhaps the reason that you hear talk about Roberts is that the Senate actually defaults to Roberts.
Yeah, I'm well aware the Senate pays no mind to Masons. They are a Roberts Rules of Order body, and you can tell by the results of their work, yes.
But I will look into that and refresh my memory there.
The second question, with your leave, Mr. Chair, is on page 2, paragraph 13. And by the way, as I say, I observed this earlier, and it may in fact be in prior versions of rules. It looks to me like this means that no amendments other than friendly amendments will be permitted in the committee. Am I reading that correctly?
Mr. Chairman, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what this rule is referring to is the situation where, say, you make a motion to amend a bill, and then Representative Heiberger says, you know, I really like everything about your motion, except I want to change may to shall. And you guys kind of have some discussion, and everyone seems to be cool with may to shall. And so then they come back to you, and they ask you whether you're willing to amend your underlying motion. And so then they would have to get the permission from you and from your second to make that friendly amendment. If you wanted to make a more, if Representative Heiberger in that case wanted to make a more substantive, different motion, he would probably make a substitute motion, would be my guess.
So there will be no unfriendly amendments permitted under these rules.
Motion to an amendment. Okay.
An amendment to an already proposed amendment.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, if I were to make a motion to say, I move we report out HB 1234 favorably for passage, Mr. Chairman, and we bring it out here, and now we have it in front of us. If my friend Representative Heiberger disagrees when I say that this ought to be a level D person felony, and he says it ought to be a misdemeanor, we can't have a motion say, Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend this to change the level of severity from a level D to a misdemeanor. That won't work if I say no?
No, absolutely it will. So we're talking about we're amending the motion. So if you make a motion to pass it out favorably, and somebody wants to say, well, I want to amend your motion to pass it out without a recommendation, then you would have to agree to changing your motion. It is only the motion. It is not amendments after the motion or amendments to the bill. It is only amending the motion that the person made or the representative.
And that would properly be a substitute motion as addressed in 12.
Could be.
But I think what we have here in 13 is really referring to the friendly amendment. process, but it doesn't say friendly. So
Well,
I see my chair disagrees, but I don't think this is right.
I think maybe what is also causing confusion is a few years ago, and this would have been after you already joined both this committee and judiciary. This committee and at least House Judiciary don't really do the bring it up by taking a motion to send it out favorably and then do amendments. Traditionally, what has happened is the chair just brings a bill up for discussion, and then that starts the discussion. So you're going to have a first motion to amend, and then if someone wanted to make a tweak to that amendment, then they would have to get the consent of the motion maker.
That is correct.
Well, I know that this proposed rule applies now or is being proposed in committees other than judiciary, which I was on from the very first day I was in this legislature. I disagree, but it's the chair and the body's prerogative. I think 13 is a mistake.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Natalie. Last item of business we would like to go over, and we've all heard about it, but we all need to know about it, and that is just an informational briefing over COMA and CORA. So let's talk about open meetings and open records for a few minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Both the Kansas Open Meetings Act and the Kansas Open Records Act apply to the conduct of this committee. And so our office has put together a memo that you can refer to. I think that was sent electronically to you guys earlier. You can refer to that if you have any questions. As always, you can reach out to Jason or I if you do have questions related to open meetings or open records. So let's start with the Open Meetings Act. The Kansas Open Meetings Act does generally apply to the Kansas Legislature, the committees, and the subcommittees, and therefore this committee is subject to COMA, so members should be aware of the implications there. The Kansas Open Meetings Act requires that, number one, meetings be open to the public, and number two, notice of meetings must be provided if requested. So public access to meetings has to be available. You guys do that in a variety of ways. You'll see the people sitting in the audience here. And then there are streaming links both on YouTube and on the Kansas Legislature's website where people can watch the meetings. And then for the notice requirement, Colette sends out notice of the committee meetings and actions that the committee is going to take. And for people in the audience who would like to request notice, they can ask Colette for that, and then she will add them to the list so that those people are getting notice of any meetings or action taken by this committee. If there is a question that arises with respect to an open meetings violation, either the Attorney General or the District Attorney can investigate that and take any action necessary. Generally, the Attorney General's office is the office that enforces the Open Meetings Act. So the first step is to determine whether a meeting exists. And a meeting is any gathering or assembly via any method of interactive two-way communication. So that could be in person or it could be electronic communication involving a majority of the voting members for the purpose of engaging in a discussion about the business of the body. So that's what a definition of a meeting is. Some common kind of like exceptions or things that come up that don't constitute meetings. Social events or traveling are not meetings because you shouldn't be discussing the conduct and the things as it relates to actual committee discussions. Attending educational conventions or listening in on a meeting of another body doesn't constitute a meeting. And then one-way communication also would not constitute a meeting because it has to have that interactive component. One thing that we like to point out is that COMA does cover serial communications. So say Representative Owens and Representative Heiberger and Representative Smith are sitting together and they're having a discussion. If they talk about the business of the committee, technically that's fine because the three of them do not constitute a quorum of this committee. But if Representative Heiberger leaves and then has a discussion with both Representative Smiths and Representative Martinez and Representative Resman and Representative Owens leaves and talks to Representative Titus, then you have serial communications where you guys are all talking about the conduct of the committee. So we definitely try to prevent that because that is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. We do have to ensure that the meeting is open. That's not really something that is too difficult here. The buildings here, we always meet here, typically in this room, and then we have the WebEx availability. So that's not something that comes up too often. And then same with providing proper notice. Our committee assistants are great at providing notice. We also post on the website and outside the House chamber and outside the committee rooms, the agendas. And so you guys are always pretty good about providing a lot of notice. Now let's talk briefly about the Kansas Open Records Act. That's the statutory act that requires public records of a public agency to be open for inspection. This committee and any subcommittees that would be created do fall under the definition of a public agency. And so they, as a result of that, you guys are subject to the Kansas Open Records Act. Typically, though, no member of this committee will have to respond to an open records request. That's something that either typically our office handles or someone might ask Colette for a copy of testimony that was provided. So typically staff can help you. If you do get a request for records of this committee, you can always forward that on to one of the staff members and we can assist you in responding to that request. The one thing to note there is responses do have to be made within 3 days, so you'll want to kind of stay on top of that. One notable exception to the Public Records Act is that public records do not include records made, maintained, or kept by members of the legislature. So your working papers on any bills or policy interests that you are interested in are not subject to the Open Records Act. And similarly, if you were to communicate with someone from our office on a bill request or something like that, those communications are not subject to the Open Records Act. So those communications always remain confidential. And so with that, I think I can take any questions if there are any.
Does anybody have any questions? Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And by the way, having had some colleagues who've received open records requests, I would certainly gratuitously suggest that if a member, no matter your committee, receives an open records request, contact the revisor's office because they can be of great assistance to you in that circumstance and keep you from getting fined. Could you address the matter of committee tours? For example, if Mr. Bowman should invite us up to Lansing and we're all together up there, how do we conduct ourselves so as to not violate open meetings?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Carmichael. That's a really good question. So tours are typically not considered meetings, and the key to that is that a majority of the members should not be discussing the business of the committee. So if you guys are just receiving information from Department of Corrections employees and they're showing you around a correctional facility, that doesn't necessarily relate to the specific business of the committee. But then if Representative Owens says something like, oh yeah, we're going to hear House Bill 2004 next week, and it talks about this issue that Randy just brought up in his presentation, that's where we get into trouble because now a majority of you are there and you're discussing the actual business of the committee. So when you are on a tour, just make sure you talk about the weather or the chiefs or something that's not the business of this committee.
Thank you very much for that helpful explanation.
Thank you. Representative Smith and then Representative Heiberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Carmichael actually asked my question, but to follow up with that a little bit, we need to be careful what questions we ask if we are on a tour. It doesn't happen often, but if we start asking about, okay, you're showing us this operation or this program, if they're requesting, they're showing us how bad it is and they're going to be needing funding, we have to be careful on what questions, because we can begin to engage in dialogue that would indeed constitute a meeting.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. And the best practice in that kind of situation, I think, if you're going to have a tour and then perhaps have a discussion about what you saw on the tour, is to take the tour and then try to get a meeting, and it can be on premise. If you go visit El Dorado Correctional Facility, you can get a meeting room that's open to the public there, and then you can conduct an actual open meeting there. So you would have the tour, and then you could have those discussions in an actual open meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Representative Heiberger.
Thank you. I just want to clarify the issue of open records requests made to individual members, because my interpretation of the rules is that as individual members, we don't have any responsibility to reply to open records requests because we're not public bodies. But if we get one, we ought to refer it to either you or staff.
Yes, I think that's if you were to get, because that exception applies to you as an individual member, then, you wouldn't have to turn any of your records over. If you were to receive an open records request for, say, this committee, you could, of course, reply and say, I'm not the custodian, and that's really all you would have to say. But you could also forward it on to either, someone in our office, or if it's a simple thing that was distributed to the committee, then Colette can always help with that,
One of the other things that I wanted to bring up is this habit or accident of replying all. Do not reply all. It's really that simple. You do risk potentially violating parts of these acts by replying to all, the serial communication, things like that. And so just do everything in your power to double check that before you hit send, because I've already gotten 3 or 4 of them this session where somebody has replied all and set up a meeting. So now I'm invited to somebody's meeting, or just a little bit crazy. So do not reply all. Representative Carmichael.
Just real quickly, though, also, if you do receive an open records request, whether you're subject to it or not, I think the best practice is to not ignore it, but rather bring it to the revisor's attention so they can assert whatever exemption might be appropriate or whatever, rather than on your own saying, my email's not subject to the Open Records Act. I'm not even going to bother to worry about this. I think it's always best to call your lawyer.
Yes.
And actually, Representative Owens, your comment made me think of something. The conduct of scheduling a meeting is not actually considered the business of this committee. So if there is a majority of you sitting around and you're talking about, oh, should we meet Thursday? Should we meet Sunday? Those types of communications are not actually part of the meeting. But certainly it's always best. I think normally when research or someone from LAS reaches out to get a meeting time, they normally blind copy you. So you can't even reply all, but certainly, best practice not to do that.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Natalie? All right. Thank you very much, Natalie, for going over that with me. Just a couple of more things that I'll mention. We talked about silencing your phone. So there's this little tradition here in the State House that if you don't silence your phone and it makes noises or chirps, then you're responsible for treats the next day. So that will be strictly enforced. Just keep that in mind. Absences, I do ask that if you're not going to be here, just shoot me a message. You should all have my cell phone number. It just helps me be able to plan, make sure that we're going to have a quorum and things like that. I get that things happen. And of course, anytime that we're not voting, you're welcome to join us online as well if that needs to happen. But just touch base with me. And finally, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I definitely like to be punctual in our starting. So that we can make sure we get our work done and get out of here. So do your best to be here at 1:30, and we'll do our best to get out of here by 3. So are there any other business or any other question that needs brought before the committee today?
Point of interest, Mr. Chairman, I just got a text that said the governor's tested positive for COVID, if you've already heard that, and that therefore the State of the State address is going to be moved to the 24th. That might be important for your planning.
I wasn't aware of that part, although I had heard she tested positive for COVID, and
moved it to the 24th.
Suppose that'll add
people coming that you've invited that's relevant. So I just
very good. Well, that'll certainly redefine a super spreader event, I suppose, with the inauguration and everything that's gone on. So it is what it is. Anything else? All right, very good. We will be adjourned and